Part 4. The Draxel Fortress Falls. The Galactic Council sent 27 urgent messages to Earth demanding an immediate ceasefire. Chancellor Ralvex himself appeared on the communication channels, his tentacles writhing in what the translators called extreme agitation. "This has gone far enough," Ralvex said. "The Draxel have been taught their lesson. You must cease hostilities now." Ambassador Taman back on Earth responded with calm certainty. "The Draxel Empire will surrender unconditionally and hand over all war criminals for trial. Those are our terms. Nothing less will be accepted." "You cannot invade their homeworld," Ralvex protested. "It has never been done. The defenses are too strong. You will lose thousands of ships and gain nothing." "Then the Draxel should surrender," Taman said simply. "We gave them time to evacuate. We warned them what would happen. They chose to fight. Now they will face the consequences." He ended the transmission before Ralvex could respond. Draxos Prime hung in space like a fortress world, which is exactly what it was. 6 layers of orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet, each layer capable of destroying entire fleets. On the surface, 5 million Draxel soldiers waited with weapons charged and ready. The planet's cities had been fortified over centuries. Underground bunkers could protect the civilian population from anything except a direct planetary bombardment. Commander Kryn stood in his command fortress at the capital city's center. The fortress had walls 30 meters thick made of alloy that could withstand nuclear weapons. Its shields could deflect anything the Council had ever created. It had its own power generation, its own water supply, its own air recycling. It could withstand a siege for years. "Let them come," Kryn said to his generals. "They will break themselves against our defenses. Then the galaxy will see that the Draxel cannot be defeated." What Kryn did not know was that Commander Deho's Phantoms had been on Draxos Prime for 3 weeks. They had infiltrated during the chaos after the fleet battle, slipping past security that was designed to stop armies, not small teams of specialists. Deho stood in a maintenance tunnel beneath the first layer of orbital defense platforms. Around him, 15 Phantoms worked with quiet efficiency, attaching devices to the power distribution network. "These are not bombs," Deho explained to his newest team member, a soldier named Minho. "We are not here to destroy anything. We are here to make the defenses vulnerable. When the attack comes, these devices will cause power fluctuations, just enough to create gaps in the shield coverage." "Why not just blow them up?" Minho asked. "Because we want the platforms intact. After we win, we will need those defenses to protect this world from others who might want revenge. We are not here to destroy the Draxel. We are here to defeat them." The distinction mattered to Deho. Humanity had fought enough wars among themselves to understand the difference between victory and atrocity. They were here to stop the Draxel from killing more people, not to exterminate an entire species. Admiral Minji assembled her fleet at the edge of the Draxos system. She had 800 ships against 6 layers of defenses designed to stop 10,000. The galaxy was watching, waiting to see the humans finally fail. "Commander Yuna, are your Marines ready?" Minji asked. On the screen, Commander Yuna nodded. She commanded 50,000 Marines, soldiers trained specifically for orbital assault. They wore powered armor that enhanced their strength and protected them from the vacuum of space. Each Marine had trained for years. Each one knew exactly what they had to do. "We're ready, Admiral. Just get us to the platforms." "Soman, what's your analysis of the defenses?" Minji asked. The AI appeared on another screen. "The orbital platforms are designed to destroy large targets. Their weapons are optimized for capital ships. They have minimal defense against small objects moving at high velocity. I calculate a 73% survival rate for the drop pods." 73%. That meant more than 10,000 Marines would die just reaching the platforms. Minji felt the weight of that knowledge, but she did not hesitate. This was war. People died in war. The goal was to make sure their deaths meant something. "All ships begin the assault," Minji ordered. The human fleet moved forward. The first layer of defense platforms opened fire. Energy beams that could vaporize battleships lanced through space. Human ships dodged and weaved, their impossible maneuvers making them difficult targets. Some ships were hit. Shields flared and failed. Armor melted. Ships died, but the fleet kept coming. As they reached the optimal range, Commander Yuna gave her order. "All Marines launch drop pods. See you on the other side." 50,000 drop pods launched from the fleet. Each pod was barely 3 meters long, carrying a single Marine in powered armor. They were small, fast, and very hard to hit. The defense platforms tried to target them, but there were too many moving too fast in patterns that constantly shifted. The pods fell toward the platforms like a meteor storm. Point defense managed to destroy some. Energy beams caught others, but most got through. They struck the platforms at terminal velocity, punching through outer hulls and deploying their Marines directly inside. Yuna's pod hit platform Delta 7. The impact would have killed a normal human, but her armor absorbed most of the shock. She was through the hull and moving within 3 seconds. Around her, 20 other Marines from her company were doing the same. "Secure the power distribution center," Yuna ordered. "Teams of 4, move fast, watch your corners." The Draxil garrison on the platform was completely unprepared for enemies appearing inside their defenses. They were trained to fire at ships, not to fight boarding actions. The Marines cut through them with brutal efficiency. These were not civilians. These were military personnel operating weapons of war. The Marines showed them the same mercy they had shown the medical frigate. None. Within 30 minutes, humans controlled every platform in the first defense layer. Sunwoo, the demolitions expert, worked with his team to rig the platforms with charges, not to destroy them but to ensure they could if the Draxil tried to retake them. "Platforms rigged," Sunwoo reported. "If they try to retake even one, we blow all of them." "They know we will." The Draxil commanders understood the message. They could either accept the loss of the first layer or lose all 6 layers. They pulled back to the second layer and prepared for another assault. But the assault never came the way they expected. The human fleet did not try to fight through the remaining 5 layers. Instead, Admiral Minji positioned her ships in orbit and began something the galaxy had never seen before. Precision. Orbital bombardment guided by artificial intelligence. Soman had spent months analyzing Draxos Prime. She knew where every military base was located. She knew which buildings were barracks and which were command centers. She knew where the ammunition was stored and where the shield generators drew their power. And she knew how to destroy all of it without harming civilians. Kinetic projectiles fell from orbit. Not nuclear weapons. Not energy beams. Just large pieces of metal moving at incredible speeds. When they hit, they released as much energy as bombs but with surgical precision. A military base would be reduced to rubble, while buildings 50 meters away remained untouched. Commander Kryn watched from his fortress as his military infrastructure was systematically destroyed. His air bases were gone. His tank depots were craters. His communication centers were rubble. And his soldiers were trapped in their bunkers, unable to coordinate, unable to fight back. "This is impossible," Kryn said. "They cannot be this accurate from orbit." His technical advisor looked at the reports with something like awe. "Commander, their targeting is beyond anything we have seen. They are hitting targets within 1 meter of their aim point. Our own orbital weapons have a 50-meter margin of error. They are operating at a level of precision that should not be possible." "Then how are they doing it?" Kryn demanded. "AI," the advisor said quietly. "They are using artificial intelligence to calculate each shot. Something we banned centuries ago because we feared it." Kryn felt cold certainty settle over him. The humans had not just built better weapons, they had built better minds to use those weapons. They had taken risks the Draxil would never take, and those risks had paid off. The garrison began surrendering in large groups. 5 million soldiers had seemed like an unbeatable force. But when they could not move, could not communicate, and could not fight back against an enemy they could not see, morale collapsed. Within 3 days, 4 million Draxil soldiers had thrown down their weapons and surrendered to human forces. The Marines processed them efficiently. Medical Officer Hana set up field hospitals to treat wounded Draxil. "We are not monsters," she told her staff. "They fought, they lost, now we care for them. That is what civilized species do." Commander Deho's team breached Kryn's fortress on the 4th day. They did not storm it with thousands of troops. They did not bomb it from orbit. Instead, 20 Phantoms found a maintenance entrance that was supposed to be secret and made their way inside. The fortress defenders fought hard. They were Kryn's personal guard, the best soldiers the Draxil had. But they were fighting in their own fortress, which meant they knew the layout. Unfortunately for them, so did Deho. His team had obtained the blueprints weeks ago. The fight lasted 7 minutes. When it was over, 18 Draxil guards were dead. 2 Phantoms were wounded, and Kryn was cornered in his Comma Part 5, the Council's reckoning. The Galactic Council chamber was filled to capacity. Every species in civilized space had sent representatives. They came to witness what would happen next. Some came with curiosity, others with fear. A few came with hope that someone was finally going to challenge the old order. Chancellor Ralvex called the session to order. His tentacles moved in patterns that the translators called agitation, mixed with resignation. The Council recognizes Ambassador Kyungmin of Earth. She has requested this emergency session. Kyungmin walked to the center podium. She was younger than Taemin, barely 40 years old, but she carried herself with absolute confidence. Where Taemin had been diplomatic and patient, Kyungmin was direct and unapologetic. She was the ambassador Earth needed now that the mask was off. Members of the Council, Kyungmin began, her voice clear and strong. Earth has been a member of this body for 50 years. In that time we have followed your laws. We have paid our fees. We have tried to be good neighbors. And in return, you have treated us with contempt. You have allowed our people to be murdered. You have dismissed our concerns. You have made it clear that human lives do not matter to you. Several council members started to protest, but Kyungmin continued without pause. The Draxil Empire killed 3,000 of our civilians. Your response was a fine of 1 million credits. That is less than the cost of the missiles they used to kill our people. You called this justice. So Earth decided to show you what justice actually looks like. She gestured to the displays around the chamber. They showed footage from the war, destroyed Draxil fleets, the occupation of Draxos Prime, Kryn's death. But they also showed something else. Human Marines providing medical care to wounded Draxil, food being distributed to civilians, infrastructure being rebuilt. We did not exterminate the Draxil, Kyungmin said. We did not bomb their cities or slaughter their people. We destroyed their military and arrested their war criminals. We showed them that actions have consequences. And now we are helping them rebuild into a society that does not prey on others. Chancellor Ralvex's voice was careful. Ambassador, the Council acknowledges that the situation with the Draxil was not handled properly. But your response was excessive. You cannot unilaterally attack Council member species. Cannot. Kyungmin let the word hang in the air. Chancellor, we already did. And now we are withdrawing from Council authority. Earth will no longer follow laws that protect predators and ignore victims. The chamber erupted in noise. Species shouted at each other in dozens of languages. The translators struggled to keep up. Director Jiwon stepped up beside Kyungmin. She carried a data device that looked simple but contained information that would change everything. If I may, Jiwon said quietly, but her voice cut through the chaos. I am Director Jiwon of Earth Intelligence Services. For the past 30 years, my organization has been monitoring Council communications. What we found was very interesting. She activated the device. Intercepted messages played across every screen in the chamber. Communications between the Draxil and 3 other Council species. Plans to attack Earth after the Draxil had weakened them. Discussions of dividing up human territory. Calculations of how much profit could be made from enslaving human colonies. The chamber went silent. The Galactic Council knew, Jiwon said, her voice hard. You knew the Draxil were planning to attack us. 3 of your member species were planning to join them. And you did nothing. Worse than nothing. You actively prevented us from taking defensive actions. You told us to trust Council law to protect us. You lied. Chancellor Ralvex tried to speak, but Kyungmin cut him off. We have evidence of 14 major atrocities committed by Council species over the past century. Species exterminated, world stripped of resources, populations enslaved. And in every case, the Council did nothing because the perpetrators were powerful. You do not maintain peace. You maintain a system where the strong can do whatever they want to the weak. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of dozens of alien representatives. That system ends today. Earth is offering the Council a choice. Reform completely, with real enforcement of real laws, or we will leave and form our own alliance. One where justice actually means something. The 3 species that had been planning to attack Earth tried to deny everything. But their own communications condemned them. Their own words in their own voices laying out plans for genocide and conquest. Seojin, Earth's diplomatic strategic advisor, stepped forward with a document. We have prepared a new Council charter. It includes several key provisions. First, no species may attack or conquer another without full Council approval by a supermajority vote. Second, war crimes will be prosecuted regardless of the perpetrator's power. Third, Earth's military will serve as the Council's enforcement arm. Unacceptable, one of the delegates shouted. You cannot give one species military authority over all others. Why not? Kyungmin asked. You gave the Draxil economic authority. You gave the Vaxtori cultural authority. You gave the Morthans judicial authority. Each species contributes what they are best at. Humanity is very good at warfare. We have been fighting each other for 10,000 years. We understand violence in ways you cannot imagine, and we have decided to use that understanding to protect others instead of conquering them. Chancellor Ralvex raised a tentacle. And if the Council refuses these terms? Then Earth leaves, Kyungmin said simply. We will take our ships, our technology, and our protection with us. And when the next Draxil Empire rises, when the next powerful species decides to prey on the weak, the Council can handle it yourselves. The threat was clear. The galaxy had seen what human military power looked like. They had watched a 100-year-old spacefaring species destroy a 5,000-year-old empire in less than 2 weeks. If Earth left and took that power with them, the old predator species would return to their old ways. The strong would dominate the weak again, and everyone knew it. I request a recess, Ralvex said. The Council must discuss these proposals. You have 48 hours, Kyungmin said. After that, Earth begins forming an alliance with species who want real protection. We already have 17 systems that have asked to join us. The recess lasted only 6 hours. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. The Council accepted the new charter. The 3 species caught planning to attack Earth were censured and lost their council seats. War crime tribunals were established with real authority, and Earth's military became the Council's enforcement fleet. Not everyone was happy. Some species saw this as humanity taking over the Council. Others saw it as the Council finally having teeth. But the most important thing happened quietly in the days after the vote. Smaller species, ones that had been bullied and threatened for centuries, started speaking up. They reported crimes that had been ignored. They demanded justice that had been denied. And for the first time in galactic history, they received it. A week after the Council vote, several fleets belonging to aggressive species tried to attack their neighbors, thinking the new rules were just words. Admiral Minji's fleet appeared within hours. The aggressors were given one chance to surrender. Most took it. The few that did not were destroyed quickly and efficiently. The galaxy learned that the new rules were not suggestions. They were laws. And laws had consequences. Taemin met with Kyungmin in a quiet room on Station Unity 7. Do you think it will last? He asked. This new order we have built? Kyungmin looked out at the stars. I think some species will always test the boundaries. I think there will always be those who believe might makes right. But now when they try to prey on the weak, they will find humanity standing in their way, and they will remember what happened to the Draxil. We have become what we tried to avoid, Taemin said quietly. An empire enforcing our will on others. No, Kyungmin said firmly. An empire conquers for profit. An empire enslaves and exploits. We are not building an empire. We are building a system where species like the Draxil cannot commit atrocities without facing justice. There is a difference. Taemin wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that humanity would use their power wisely, that they would not become the very thing they had defeated. But he had studied history. He knew what happened to species with overwhelming military advantage. They started with good intentions. But power corrupted always. Then we must be vigilant, Taemin said. We must watch ourselves as carefully as we watch others. The moment we start believing that our military strength gives us the right to dictate how others live, we become the Draxil. Kyungmin nodded slowly. That is why I'm glad you are staying on as an advisor. I need someone who remembers why we did not want this power in the first place. Someone who will remind me when we start to go too far. Outside the window, human warships patrolled alongside vessels from dozens of other species. The new Council peacekeeping force, they called it. But everyone knew it was really the Earth Defense Fleet extended across the galaxy. Director Jiwon entered the room with a report. We have intelligence that several species are attempting to form a counter-alliance. They call themselves the Sovereignty Coalition. They say the Council has become a human puppet and they will not submit to our authority. How many ships do? Part 3. The First Strike. The Draxil. Third Fleet emerged from hyperspace exactly where they planned. Admiral Vorkath, commander of the fleet, expected to see the human homeworld's defenses scrambling to mount a response. Instead, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Mines, thousands of them. But not human mines. These were Draxil mines. part of their own defensive network that should have been 3 systems away. The identification codes were correct. The signatures matched. But they should not be here. How did they move our minds? Vorkath demanded. How did they get our codes? His tactical officer stared at the display in horror. Sir, the mines are activating. They're targeting us. Override them. Use the emergency shutdown codes. The officer tried. His claws moved frantically across the controls. The codes aren't working. They've been changed. Sir, impact in 10 seconds. Vorkath barely had time to order evasive maneuvers before the first wave hit. Explosions tore through his fleet. Ships that had served for centuries were ripped apart by their own weapons. The mines had been repositioned perfectly, placed exactly where they would do the most damage. In the first 30 seconds, the Third Fleet lost 400 ships. Captain Bora watched from her stealth corvette, satisfaction clear on her face. She had spent 48 hours moving those mines one by one, using stealth technology that made her ship invisible to Draxil sensors. Her crew had worked without rest, positioning each mine with precision. That's for the medical frigate, she said softly. That's for the 3,000. The 7th Fleet arrived 10 minutes later. They saw the carnage and tried to retreat, but it was too late. They had jumped directly into the trap. Admiral Minji's fleet appeared like ghosts materializing from nowhere. One moment the space around the Draxil fleets was empty. The next moment 800 human warships were there, surrounding them completely. All ships weapons free, Minji ordered. Target their command vessels first. Disable their ability to coordinate. The human fleet moved in ways that should have been impossible. 3-dimensional maneuvers that subjected the ships to forces that would have turned any organic crew into paste. But human ships had inertial dampeners that the Council's physicists had declared impossible. The crews felt nothing while their ships danced through space like predatory fish. Junho sat in the cyber warfare section of the Indomitable, his fingers moving across holographic displays. He was not fighting with guns or missiles. He was fighting with code, with viruses and backdoors and exploits that his team had developed over decades of studying Draxil systems. Breaching their command network now, Junho said. Their firewalls are based on Council standard protocols. We wrote better ones 20 years ago. His team worked with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, they had penetrated the Draxil military network. Communication channels started showing false information. Friend or foe systems began malfunctioning. Draxil ships started reading other Draxil ships as enemies. Admiral Vorkath watched his tactical display descend into chaos. Ships were reporting ghost signals. Weapon systems were locking onto friendly vessels. Communication was breaking down across the fleet. This is impossible, he said. Our systems are quantum encrypted. They cannot be hacked. His communication officer looked up, fear clear in his posture. Admiral, I'm receiving reports from across the fleet. Our ships are targeting each other. The tactical AI systems have been compromised. Before Vorkath could respond, 3 of his own cruisers fired on his flagship. The shields held, but the message was clear. The humans had not just defeated their security. They had turned their own weapons against them. Commander Nari led the fighter wing attack. Her squadron consisted of 30 small craft, each one carrying a pilot who had trained for years. The fighters moved at speeds that seemed suicidal, pulling maneuvers at 20 gravities while the pilots remained conscious and alert. Remember your training, Nari said over the squadron channel. We know where they're weak. Hit the shield generators on the capital ships. Once the shields are down, the main fleet will finish them. The fighters screamed through space. Draxil Point Defense tried to track them but kept missing. The human craft were too fast, too agile. They wove through incoming fire like dancers. Each pilot's movements coordinated with the others through neural links that let them think as one. Nari's fighter reached her target, a Draxil battleship that was trying to rally the fleet. Her weapons were small compared to the battleship's armor, but she did not need to penetrate the armor. She just needed to hit the shield generator, a vulnerable point that decades of intelligence gathering had identified. Her missiles struck true. The battleship's shields flickered and died. A moment later, 3 human destroyers hit it with everything they had. The battleship broke apart, its pieces scattering across space. Admiral Vorkath knew he was beaten. His fleet was in shambles. More than half his ships were destroyed or crippled. The survivors were scattered, unable to coordinate. And the human fleet had barely taken any damage. All ships retreat, he ordered. Jump to secondary rally point. But Junho's cyber warfare team had one more surprise. The hyperspace navigation systems on the Draxel ships had been compromised. When ships tried to jump, their coordinates were off by random amounts. Some ships jumped successfully. Others jumped into each other. A few jumped directly into nearby stars. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the 3rd and 7th fleets of the Draxel Empire had ceased to exist as fighting forces. Out of 4,000 ships, less than 100 survived. Those survivors were damaged, scattered, and fleeing in random directions. The human fleet had lost 11 ships. Casualties totaled less than 300 personnel. Minji broadcast a message on all frequencies, making sure every species in the galaxy could hear. This is Admiral Minji of the Earth Defense Fleet. The Draxel Empire attacked our civilians and killed 3,000 people. The Galactic Council called this acceptable and issued a small fine. Today we showed what humanity calls acceptable. We gave the Draxel 48 hours to evacuate their military personnel. Some did, most did not. They chose to fight. This is the result. She paused, letting the images of the destroyed fleets fill screens across the galaxy. We do not want to conquer anyone. We do not want an empire. We want to be left alone. We want our people to live in peace. But if you attack us, if you kill our civilians, if you think humanity is weak because we prefer peace, then you will learn what we learned over thousands of years on our homeworld. Peace is not weakness. Peace is a choice. And we can choose something else. Commander Kryn watched the broadcast from his fortress on Draxos Prime. 2 of his best fleets were gone, destroyed in a single battle. The humans had not just won. They had made it look easy. Mobilize all remaining forces, Kryn ordered. Bring every ship to defend the homeworld. If they want a war, we will give them a war they cannot win. His advisors looked at each other nervously. One finally spoke. Commander, perhaps we should consider negotiation. The humans said they would accept surrender. Kryn turned to the advisor with rage in his eyes. Surrender? To primitives? Never. The Draxel Empire has stood for 5,000 years. We will not bow to a species that barely knows how to reach the stars. The advisor said nothing more, but he began making plans to evacuate his family from the homeworld. He had seen the tactical reports. He had watched the battle recordings, and he knew something that Kryn refused to accept. The war was already over. The Draxel had lost. The only question now was how many more would die before Kryn admitted it. In orbit around Earth, Taman watched the battle reports with mixed feelings. He had spent 12 years trying to prevent this. 12 years of diplomacy and patience. And in the end, violence had been the only language the Draxel understood. Do you regret it? Jisoo asked. Taman thought for a long moment. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that 3,000 people had to die before we acted. I regret that the galaxy could not accept peace from a position of equality. But do I regret showing them what happens when they push humanity too far? No, some lessons can only be taught one way. What happens next? Next, we finish this. Admiral Minji is preparing to assault Draxos Prime. Once we take their homeworld, the war will be over. Jisoo looked worried. An invasion? That's never been done. No species has ever successfully invaded a heavily defended homeworld. Taman smiled slightly. That's what they said about hacking quantum encrypted networks. That's what they said about moving faster than their ships. That's what they said about humans in general. I think it's time the galaxy learned to stop saying what humans cannot do. Part 2. The Awakening Admiral. Minji stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching as ships emerged from stealth positions throughout the outer rim. She had waited 30 years for this moment. 30 years of pretending that Earth's fleet was small and weak. 30 years of watching humanity bow and scrape before species that saw them as nothing. Admiral, the last of the reserve fleets have reported in, said Captain Hyun, who had been transferred from diplomatic duty to his old position in the military. We have 847 combat vessels ready for immediate deployment. 847. The Council thought Earth had maybe 50 warships. They thought humans were barely capable of defending their own system. They were very wrong. What's the status on the Phantom teams? Minji asked. Commander Deho reports all teams are ready. They've been running infiltration drills for months. Most of them are already in position near Draxel military installations. Minji nodded. The Phantoms were Earth's special forces. Soldiers trained in ways the galaxy would consider horrifying. They had studied every species in the Council. They knew how each one thought, how they fought, what scared them, and they were very good at their job. Salmon appeared on the main screen. She was not on any ship. Salmon existed in the network, an artificial intelligence that humanity had created in secret. The Council had laws against AI like Salmon. They said such systems were too dangerous, too unpredictable. They were right to be scared. Admiral, Salmon said, her voice pleasant and calm, I have completed analysis of all Draxel military communications for the past 5 years. I have identified weaknesses in their command structure, vulnerabilities in their ship designs, and predictable patterns in their tactical doctrine. Would you like me to prepare a complete battle plan? Yes, Minji said. Assume they will send their 3rd and 7th fleets to attack Earth once they realize we're mobilizing. How do we destroy both fleets with minimal losses to our side? Salmon was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. For an AI, that was an eternity of calculation. I have 17 potential strategies. The most effective involves allowing them to believe they are ambushing us while we are actually ambushing them. Estimated enemy casualties 97%. Estimated human casualties less than 1%. Send me the details, Minji said. She looked out at the fleet assembling around her flagship. These ships were nothing like what the galaxy expected. Human engineers had not tried to copy alien technology. Instead, they had built on human history, on centuries of warfare and innovation. The ships could accelerate faster than any alien vessel because humans had solved inertial compensation in ways the Council said violated physics. The weapons hit harder because humans understood nuclear forces at quantum levels. The armor was stronger because human metallurgy had never stopped advancing, and the crews were ready. Every man and woman on these ships had trained for this. They knew what was at stake. Minji activated the fleet-wide channel. This is Admiral Minji to all vessels. 48 hours ago, Ambassador Taman gave the Draxel Empire one last chance to do the right thing. They laughed at him. They laughed at all of us. They killed 3,000 of our people and paid less than the cost of a single one of their ships. The Council said this was justice. She paused, letting her words sink in. Today we show them what human justice looks like. We did not want this war. We tried for 50 years to make peace work. But the galaxy has made it clear that peace only matters if you are strong enough to enforce it. So we will enforce it, not with cruelty, not with genocide, but with absolute certainty. Any species that harms humanity will face consequences they cannot survive. This is not revenge. This is deterrence. This is making sure that no one ever thinks they can kill our people and walk away unpunished. Thousands of voices responded across the fleet channels. They were ready. Soman, send the message to the Council. Broadcast it on all frequencies so everyone can hear. The AI complied. The message was simple, recorded by Taman himself before he left the Council station. To all species of the Galactic Council, humanity has withdrawn from Council authority. We gave you 50 years to treat us with basic respect. You chose not to. Now we will handle our own affairs. The Draxel Empire has 48 hours to surrender completely and pay full reparations for their war crimes. This includes the immediate arrest and transfer of Commander Kryn to face trial. If they do not comply, Earth will consider all Draxel military assets to be legitimate targets. Evacuate your people from their bases. After 48 hours, we will show no mercy to combatants. Minji watched as the message spread across the galaxy at faster than light speeds. She imagined the reactions. The laughter, the disbelief, the certainty that humans were bluffing. They would learn. Commander Deho was already at work. He stood in the cargo bay of a stealth ship, checking his equipment one final time. Around him, 50 other phantoms did the same. They wore armor that could blend into almost any environment. They carried weapons that could kill silently or create massive devastation, depending on what the mission required. Mission briefing, Deho said, and his team gathered around. We're hitting 12 Draxel military installations simultaneously. Our job is not to kill everyone there. Our job is to make sure that when the real attack comes, those bases cannot respond effectively. We sabotage communications. We corrupt their tactical systems. We make them blind and confused. One of his soldiers raised a hand. Rules of engagement? Avoid civilian casualties. If a Draxel is armed and in a military facility, they are fair game. If they surrender, we accept it. We are not here to commit war crimes. We are here to win a war quickly and decisively. The Phantoms nodded. They had trained for scenarios like this. They knew the difference between military necessity and cruelty. That distinction was important. It was what separated humanity from species like the Draxel. Across the galaxy, the Draxel military was mobilizing. Commander Kryn had ordered the 3rd and 7th fleets to Earth, 4,000 warships. It was more than enough to destroy every human world in station. It was overkill, but Kryn wanted to send a message. He stood in his command fortress on Draxos Prime, watching the fleet movements on his tactical display. "The humans think they can threaten us," he said to his staff. "They think because they destroyed a few of our scout ships years ago that they understand war. They do not. We have fought for thousands of years. We have conquered 17 systems. We have crushed species far more advanced than these primitives." His second-in-command hesitated. "Commander, our intelligence has detected unusual activity in human space. There are ships appearing that we did not know existed." Kryn waved a dismissive hand. "Probably civilian vessels fleeing their homeworld. Let them run. It will make the conquest easier." But something nagged at him. The humans had been in space for a century. That was barely any time at all. Yet they had managed to purchase worlds, establish colonies, and develop technology that worked. They had not asked for help. They had not needed council assistance. What if they had been hiding things? Kryn pushed the thought away. It was impossible. His spies had reported that Earth had only a small defense fleet. The humans spent their resources on peaceful things like medicine and art. They were soft. He would crush them in a matter of days. The 48 hours passed. Across the galaxy, some civilians evacuated Draxil military bases. Most did not. They did not believe the human threat was real. Admiral Minji watched the countdown reach 0. "All ships," she said calmly. "Execute protocol revelation. Show them what we are." The fleet moved as one. Ships that had been hiding in the dark spaces between stars activated their drives. Stealth technology that the Council thought was theoretical failed, revealing vessels that had been following Draxil fleets for days. And in 12 different locations, Commander Deho's Phantoms completed their sabotage. The 3rd and 7th fleets of the Draxil Empire were about to learn a hard lesson. War was not about who had fought the longest. It was about who fought the smartest. And humanity had spent 50 years preparing to be the smartest fighters the galaxy had ever seen. Part 1. The Diplomatic Mask. The chamber was enormous, filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. Taman sat in the human section, his hands folded on the desk before him. He had been Earth's ambassador for 12 years now. 12 years of listening to insults. 12 years of watching other species treat humanity like children who had wandered into an adult conversation. Today was worse than usual. Commander Kryn stood at the center podium, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of dominance. The Draxil were tall, covered in thick gray scales with eyes that looked like black marbles. Kryn was their war leader and he was laughing. "The humans complain again," Kryn said, his voice booming through the translation systems. "They say we attacked their ships. They say we killed their people. But those ships were in Draxil space. We have claimed those routes for 3,000 years. Taman stood slowly. "Those routes were open space according to Council law. Our colony ships were traveling to New Sol, a world we purchased legally through Council channels. You had no right to fire on civilian vessels." Kryn turned to face him. Even across the massive chamber, Taman could see the contempt in those black eyes. "Right? You speak of rights? Your species has been in space for barely a century. We were crossing the stars when your ancestors were still living in caves. You have no rights except what we allow you." Several species in the chamber made sounds that the translators rendered as laughter. Taman felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice calm. 3,000 people died in that attack, including 400 children. They were civilians on medical frigates clearly marked with Council peace symbols. "Then they should not have been in our space," Kryn said simply. Chancellor Ralvex, the ancient being who led the Council, raised one of his many tentacles. "The Council has heard both arguments. We will now vote on appropriate action." Jisoo leaned close to Taman, whispering so only he could hear. "They won't do anything. You know they won't." Taman knew. But he had to try. The vote took less than 5 minutes. The Council decided that the Draxil would pay a fine of 1 million credits and issue a formal apology. For 3,000 lives, that was the price. 1 million credits was less than what a single Draxil warship cost. Kryn accepted the judgment with a slight bow that was clearly mocking. As he left the podium, he passed close to the human section. He looked directly at Taman and spoke in a voice that carried across the quiet chamber. "Tell your homeworld to stay out of our way, little human. Next time we will not be so gentle." The session ended. Species filed out of the chamber, most ignoring the human delegation entirely. A few gave what might have been sympathetic looks, but sympathy did nothing for the families of 3,000 dead. Jisoo waited until they were in the privacy of their transport shuttle before speaking. "How much longer are we going to let them do this to us?" Taman stared out the viewport at the massive station where the council met. Unity 7, they called it. A symbol of cooperation among the stars. But Taman had learned that cooperation only mattered if you were strong enough to demand it. "I need to send a message to Earth Command," Taman said quietly. Jisoo's eyes widened slightly. "Are you sure? Once you send that message, there's no going back." "I'm sure." Later that night, in his private quarters, Taman sat before the quantum communication terminal. This message would reach Earth in seconds, traveling through folded space in ways that the Council thought they understood, but humanity had secretly improved upon. He thought about the families, the children who would never grow up, the parents who died trying to protect them. He thought about 12 years of swallowing insults, of being treated like a species that did not matter. He thought about what Hyun had told him months ago. Hyun was the captain of Earth's diplomatic vessel, but before that, he had been a military officer. "We have ships they've never seen," Hyun had said. "We have weapons they don't believe are possible. We've been playing weak for 50 years, Ambassador. But we're not weak. We're just patient." Taman typed his message with steady hands. "To Earth Command, from Ambassador Taman. The Council has refused to provide justice for the New Soul massacre. Commander Kryn of the Draxil Empire killed 3,000 civilians and has been fined less than the cost of a single ship. They have made it clear that human lives have no value in their system. I have exhausted all diplomatic options. Recommend immediate activation of Protocol Revelation. The mask has served its purpose. It is time to show them who we really are." He sent the message and sat back. His hands were shaking now, but not from fear, from anger, from relief. Jisoo entered his quarters without knocking. She had been monitoring communications and knew what he had done. "Earth Command has already responded," she said. "Admiral Minji sends her regards. She says the fleet will be ready within 48 hours. 48 hours, Taman repeated. "What happens after that?" Jisoo smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "After that, the galaxy learned something important. They learned that humans didn't forget how to make war. We just stopped making war on each other. We've been saving it all up, saving it for the species who think mercy is weakness." Taman stood and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, in hidden locations that the Council did not know existed, Earth's true fleet was waking up. Ships that had been built in secret. Weapons that had been designed by the best minds humanity had ever produced. People who remembered what it took to survive on a world where everything wanted to kill you. "I spent 12 years trying to make peace work," Taman said softly. "I believed in the Council. I believed in cooperation between species." "And now?" Jisoo asked. "Now I believe in justice. And if the Council won't provide it, then Earth will." The next morning, Taman requested an emergency session of the Council. When Ralvex asked him the reason, Taman's response was simple. "I wish to give the Draxil Empire an opportunity to surrender and pay proper reparations for their war crimes. I also wish to give all Council members a final chance to support humanity's right to exist with dignity." The chamber erupted in what the translators called laughter, but Taman heard it as mockery. Kryn was laughing loudest of all. Ralvex's voice was almost gentle, the way someone speaks to a confused child. "Ambassador Taman, the matter is settled. The vote has been taken. There will be no further discussion." Taman bowed slightly. "Then I have one final message for this Council. Earth gave you 50 years to treat us as equals. We tried patience. We tried diplomacy. We followed your laws and respected your customs. You responded with contempt. You allowed our people to be murdered and called it acceptable. So now we withdraw from council law. From this moment forward, Earth will handle its own justice. You cannot withdraw from council law, Ralvex said, and now there was an edge to his voice. All species in civilized space must abide by council decisions. Taman looked directly at Kryn. Then perhaps Earth is not civilized. Perhaps we are exactly what you always said we were. Primitives, savages, animals who don't understand how proper species behave. He let the words hang in the air for a moment. And perhaps you are about to learn why predators are dangerous when you corner them. Taman walked out of the council chamber with Jisoo behind him. He did not look back. Behind them, the council was silent for the first time in anyone's memory.